Bailey. He's Jamie Wadley, and this is Inside Exec. Today we're concluding our discussion, our conversation with Dr. Thomas Krause, and we're going to look at his expertise area of safety and making leaders and managers better safety managers as part of their overall role.
Do you know whether it's available in other countries where they have a more nationalised health system? So the UK, here we have a nationalised health system as well. Is that metric available in those countries?
I believe that it is. I don't know that for certain, but my impression, I haven't done healthcare safety outside the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
But my impression is that it is. It's certainly much easier because the country's smaller.
Yeah.
And you have counties, not states. We have states, and the states, our Constitution gives the states a lot of whammy. They have a lot of power on their own as a state. That way, it was intended that way. That makes it more complicated.
It does, indeed. You've worked for all sorts of places. You've done all sorts of things. What drove you to the current area where you're in this patient safety realm?
Yeah, trying to think of how I got started with patient safety. I think it was working with a healthcare organization on workplace safety, and I just bumped into it, and it was interesting. O'Neill was very interested in patient safety, and after he left Alcoa, he and I worked together with a number of other organizational leaders to try to address patient safety. He was passionate about it and really wanted to get something done in that area. And he did have influence, and he did make a difference, but he didn't get to the point that he wanted to, or that I wanted to. It just stood out to me as such a difference. And I mean, the numbers are so big. You asked why patient safety doesn't develop a metric. There is a reason that I didn't say that I should, because it gives some more understanding of how that could happen. And that reason is that there's more ambiguity in the healthcare world when there's a fatality than there is in the workplace. So if I fall off a ladder and hit my head and get killed, that's pretty straightforward. But people go to the hospital to die, right? I mean, when they get sick and then all of a sudden they have a flare-up, what happens? They go to the hospital and hopefully they survive. But of people who die in the healthcare system, some of them are just going to die when they go to the hospital. And so when someone dies in the hospital, you have to make a judgment about, was this going to happen anyway? Was it inevitable? Or was there a mistake made? Now that's tricky. That might not be an easy judgment to make. And we gave them a medication that killed them, but that medication could have saved them. Was it a good call or a bad call to give them that medication? Well, it might take 6 doctors working together to figure out if that was a good call or a bad call. And they might disagree. I didn't do it out of neglect. I didn't do it because I didn't care. It was in my judgment, it was the best thing to do on behalf of that patient. But it turned out that medication killed them. Mm-hmm. There are some in that category where it's hard to determine, and that's one of the reasons that it's difficult to develop a metric. On the other hand, there are plenty of cases where it's just crystal clear. I mean, we gave them the wrong medication, and that was a mistake. We did not intend to do that, but that happened. And there's a cultural thing. When I first started working on patient safety, I had a good friend, a physician, who I was in a reading group with, and I was talking to him on the side, and he asked me what I was doing, and I said, I was getting interested in patient safety. And he said, "Oh man, good luck. I mean, I hope things go well for you." What do you mean? Well, I'll tell you a story of what happened. This guy was a surgeon, an eye surgeon, and he said, I had a patient. I was in the process of getting ready to do a procedure, and I knew that midway through the procedure there was a drug that I needed to put into his eye, and that drug had another drug which was named the same thing with an A at the end, only it was 400 times as strong as the first one. And realizing that I really wanted to get the right medication, I went to the dispensary myself, and I got the right medication. When I got into the operating room, I handed this to the nurse, and I said, when it comes to this point, this is what I want you to give me. And we got to that point, and I said, I need thee. And she reached over and picked up the wrong medication, not knowing it, handed it to me. I administered it to the patient. Patient was blinded. And then he said, but I'll tell you what, we fired that nurse. There's no factory in the United States that would think that way. You find a factory in the United States where they would think the way that that doctor thought. Now, this is a good guy. I mean, this is not a creep doctor who doesn't care about anything and went to a lousy medical school. And, this was a high-functioning good man, but he just thought about it wrong. And I mean, he didn't know what he was saying. He didn't realize that this thing that happened was, A, not inevitable. He thought it was inevitable. There was no inevitability about that. And B, that if you have that medication stored in that way, sometimes a nurse is going to pick up the wrong one. Yeah. And that's because she did make a mistake, but to put that all on her or him, as the case may be,
the system was wrong.
Yeah, it's just not recognizing that you have a systems issue there. And it's a primitive systems issue. I mean, it's not complicated.
Yeah.
It's not like you have to have magical technology to figure out how to solve that problem. He didn't know that. So that's what you're up against when it comes to patient safety.
Well, it sounds like there's still plenty for you to do in that arena. Is there any
not
other
retiring
industry?
anytime soon.
No retirement. Is there any other industry that intrigues you that you'd like to work with that you haven't?
Oh, gosh, that's interesting. I'd love to work for Boeing right now.
Interesting time.
Yeah, we're doing a fair amount in the construction world right now. And as you know, from working in that world, it's tough. They have real hazards, and they have a lot of turnover. And
they do, but it's. I wonder whether there are cycles of industries that need more help than others, and whether you've seen that over your time as well.
Yeah, generally the industries that have the highest number of potential fatalities are the easiest to work with. So the chemical industry is where we did a whole lot of work in the early days, and the oil and gas industry, mining, places where it's easy to kill people. I mean, you hate to say it, but fatalities, CEOs don't like fatalities. They shouldn't, and they don't. I mean, it motivates them. If someone breaks their ankle, that's unfortunate, but that doesn't keep me up at night. But if somebody gets killed, I look at that and think that did not have to happen. There was nothing inevitable about that. That was because we failed to protect that worker. That moves, and then that gets action.
So just as a final question, outside of the work arena, do you find that when you're doing recreational activities that you still fall back on that's not a safe environment, that's not a safe thing to do? Is it always in the back of your mind?
I do. In fact, my grandkids give me a hard time about that. They think it's amusing.
I had to tell you, I was at a park and I overheard a conversation of a mother with what looked to be, I don't know, he would have been 6 or 7 years old, this poor child. And she said to him, he wanted to go over to the swings and they were a bit different to the normal ones. And she said to him, have you done a risk assessment? And I thought, I haven't. Have you? And this is a 7-year-old child. So he's got a career ahead of him if he's doing a risk assessment at that age. Thomas, we've covered a whole range of things, and we do thank you for sharing your expertise and your views on all of that. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I'll tell you a quick story that might be relevant to the things, some of the stuff that we have talked about. The question comes up often among really senior executives: why what do I need to do to be a strong safety leader? How can I become a better safety? It's recognized that leadership is important, but how do I become a better safety leader? So I was doing an assessment for this organization, and I was interviewing the senior executives in the organization. And as I was interviewing them, I kept hearing about this one person who was had a strong reputation as being a fine safety leader. And people thought, gosh, this person really understands it. And I heard about it enough that I was thinking, gee, I wonder what this guy is all about, that he has this reputation. So when I got to interview him, I asked him, have you always been as effective as you are now at leading safety? And he said, well, no, I haven't been. And I said, well, how did that happen? How is it that you became a great safety leader? And he said, well, it was back 20 years ago or so. I was a plant manager, and I had twin daughters who were getting ready to go off to college. And my wife and I were concerned about them and how it was going to go. We had lived in a small Midwest town, and they were going to go to the East Coast to a big city. And we thought, gosh, we hope this is all going to work out okay. And they had gone. About 2 weeks went by, and the phone rang one night. It was 3:00 in the morning or so. And I was a plant manager, and I knew that when the phone rings at 3 a.m, that's probably not a good thing. And as I woke up and got ready to answer the phone, I was really anxious about my daughters. That when I talked to the person, it was someone from the plant, and he was calling to tell me that an 18-year-old male had been killed in our factory, of which I was the plant manager. And so it wasn't anything to do with my kids, but it was somebody else's kid. And the juxtaposition, my being worried about my daughters and now hearing about somebody else's kid that was killed, just did something to me. And I said, well, so did that change what you were doing? And he said, no, it didn't so much change what I was doing. It changed how I did it. Mm-hmm. So I still went to incident investigation meetings. I still went out and walked around in the plant and talked to people. I still looked at safety data. I did the list of things that I was always doing, but I did them in a different way. They meant something different to me than they had before. Mm-hmm. And that was the thing that made me a great safety leader, or that made me effective.
That's great. It's a really practical explanation for people to understand their position in the human side of that management role as well. So, Tom, we do thank you for your time today, and we wish you well. And I'm sure that should we get questions and need more clarification, we'll send them through to you. And the episodes will be up in about 2 weeks' time, and I'll let you know when they're up.
All right. Nice to talk to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I trust you've enjoyed this conversation with Dr. Thomas Krause. If you've got questions about implementing safety in a more organic way in terms of your leadership, please drop us a line and let us know, and we'll pass on those questions to Tom. But for now, I'm Kim Bailey, he's Jamie Wadley, and this is Inside Exec.